Hi, my name is Lindsay Chichester. I'm the Extension Educator here in Douglas County, and today we are going to go through how to do a hive inspection. So as part of a hive inspection, the first thing I do is wear my beekeeping suit for full safety and just to keep myself as protected as can be from potential stings or anything I might see once we open up the hive. That includes the veil, the jacket, the long pants, and then I also wear nitrile gloves just so I can easily pick things up, but it does protect my hands. On the equipment side of things, of course I use my hive tool, and I also like the frame holder, which I'll show how this works more in a few minutes. You can use a smoker if you would prefer, or a squirt bottle to squirt the bees. My bees usually are mellow enough that I don't use these unless I need to, or if I have a more active hive that needs a little bit of smoke. So today I don't anticipate using either one of them, but they are useful tools if needed. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I keep a cinder block on top of each hive as well as a ratchet strap. This not only helps keep the hive more stable in the winds that we have here, but we're also near a river, so we're in bear country. And if a bear was to get into my apiary, I would hope that this at some level might help keep the hive together. So I'm going to just remove these pieces now. So what we'll do next is take off this telescoping cover. What I anticipate doing is once I lift this up, last summer I had spiders in here, sometimes there's moths. So anything that does not belong in the hive, I keep my hive tool handy and try to squish it if I can. So I'm going to slowly just open this telescoping cover. And sure enough, we've got a spider building a web here in the corner. So I'm just going to smash it and remove it from the hive. I then will set the telescoping cover on the ground, so if I need to, I can put my upper brood box in it as needed. Next, we've got this inner cover. Oh, we had a moth here too. We'll get rid of that. So I'll just pop this inner cover open, and what I'm also looking for is just to make sure the queen is not up in the inner cover. It would be rare for her to be up here, but I have heard of it happening before. So I don't see her, it's mostly just the workers. So I'll just set this down here inside my telescoping cover. And what we're going to do is start on this outermost side, closest to me, and this is where I'll put my frame holder up. And it just fits nicely on the edge here of a traditional Langstroth hive. And I use my hive tool to make some space and leverage so I can get in here and get this first frame out. You want to make sure you pull the frame straight up so you don't, if the queen happens to be anywhere in the area, you don't squish her or roll her. So what I'm seeing on this side is that they have got wax built out. They're starting to fill it with some honey, nectar, and then the second side closest to me is still just the foundation. So I'm just going to gently set that in my frame holder, and it just rests here on these outer finger grips. And I'm just going to keep gently working my way through the whole hive. So on this side here, you can see they've got more wax built out. And on this side, all of this capped portion here is capped honey. So they'll cap that when it gets about 17 to 18% moisture. And that side is nearly full of capped honey. And they're busy working this side. So I usually like to put 2 frames out here in my frame holder to give myself more room within the brood box to be able to work and just ensure I don't smash or harm the queen. and do as little damage to any of the workers as possible. It's important to also know the order that your frames are in because you want to put them back in the same order. All right, so on this side, we've got brood and honey. The brood is this tan appearing right here in the center, and the capped honey is around the outside. This is what we usually classify as a good pattern. We want there to be brood and honey. This side has brood also. So brood is what will become baby bees. So I'm just going to put this one back in my brood box. All right, on this side we've got more capped honey and a little bit of brood. And so what we'll look for is to see what stage the brood is in. Do we see, is it capped? Is it larva? Is it just eggs? This one has some larva in it, so what it's going to look like is white worms or tiny small grubs curled up in the bottom of these cells. So we know that the queen has been here at least within the last week, if not sooner. So if we don't see her in person, I know it's always something beekeepers like to look for and find is their queen. That's exciting, but it's more important that we see the brood and we see larva, because we know that she's here and she's doing her job. If we see her, that's a bonus. Okay, again on this side I've got nice brood pattern, so just a lot of brood. The tan capped right here is all brood, so the queen has been laying. We know that she's there. And during a hive inspection, you might also know that there's some comb being built on the bottom side of these frames. This is burr comb. So what you can do is just gently get your hive tool and remove it. That way when you put your frames back into your brood box, the burr comb doesn't make them not sit how they're supposed to. Sometimes this can build up and make it harder to get your frames inside the hive. And I just usually set it off to the side. The bees will repurpose some of the wax if there's larvae in it. They will consume that and clean it up because it is a protein for them. This just has the wax in it. All right, so a little bit of brood, some more capped honey. Everything's looking good. You also want to, during a hive inspection, just make sure that your bees appear healthy. So if they don't appear sick, deformed in any way, they're active and flying. It's a nice brood and capped honey frame again. This one's got a lot of capped honey in it. It's much heavier than some of the other frames have been. You'll notice they get up to 5-10 pounds in weight when I start filling these with honey. I don't see the queen still, and that's okay because I know she's been here. She could be in the bottom box. Okay, we've got capped honey on this side. They're just building out comb on this other side. And finally, we're at our last frame over here. The same thing, they're just starting to draw out a little bit of that wax comb. So I'll go ahead and put this in, and then I'll use my hive tool to help me gently move the frames back over. Okay. And then when I get those 8 frames into place, I'll put these 2 back in the order that they came out in, which is the one closest to me first, and then this inner one goes on the very end side. And I try not to drop it or bang it if I can help it. Then I take off my frame holder. And I do want to use my hive tool again, just to squish these frames close together and make it as even as possible on both ends of the box so that they've got their appropriate bee space. What I'll do next is put my inner cover back on. And based on what I saw here, I know that the queen has been here. There's larvae, there's capped brood, there's significant amounts of it. So I'm comfortable knowing that I don't need to go into the bottom box and find the queen because I did see brood. Based on what I also saw, there's a significant amount of capped honey in here. Hives can get honey bound, which means they'll put all their honey in here and they run out of room and space for the queen to lay eggs. So I will come back in a few days and put a super on, which is the smaller box, the honey super, and encourage them to come up into that and put the honey up there rather than in their brood boxes where the queen should be laying eggs and making the baby bees. So what I'll do next is just peek in here. So I can, so I've chosen not to go through this bottom brood box, but I can just look in here and everything appears to be well. The number of bees is appropriate. I don't see any signs of wax moth or any bees that look to be ill. So I'm just going to set this back down. And at this point, I have completed my hive inspection. So now I just want to close it up. I do a hive inspection about every 2 weeks. It's a personal preference for beekeepers. I try not to aggravate them any more than needed. Getting into their hives is fairly intrusive, but I do want to do it to ensure that they're healthy, to keep them as happy as possible, give them space when needed, and just make sure everything within the hive is functioning as it should be. They're pretty smart, but sometimes as beekeepers we can help manage some of those things to ensure that they are healthy and happy. All right, my telescoping cover goes back on. And I'll do the same thing I did before, where I just secure my ratchet straps and put the cinder block back on, and then I'll check my screen bottom boards and we'll talk about what we're seeing there as well. So on the bottom of each hive, I have screen bottom boards. I like to use these because it's a nice way for me to monitor what's happening in my hive, even if I don't always get to open it because of weather or time constraints. So this bottom part pulls out. And this site, I do have black widows here. So I always check underneath to make sure I'm not putting my finger where it shouldn't be. And what I'll do is I'll just observe what I'm seeing here. I know because I'm still feeding sugar water that I get a little bit of wetness, which makes mold. I see a little bit of pollen. There's some just normal bee debris, if you will. So I don't see anything that would lead me to believe there's wax moth larvae in here, that I have a mouse problem, I have wasps entering. All of those would mean that there's more body parts of bees. And so I'm not seeing anything that is concerning me just by looking at this. I have treated for mites fairly recently. So mites, if they were on here, would just be a small brown speck. But luckily I'm not seeing many of those either. So this is a nice tool to use as well when you can't always get into your hive or the weather isn't helpful on that. So then what I do when I'm done is I just scrape it. And then start again next time I look at it with a fairly clean palette. Both sides are a little bit dirty, but it's better than nothing. And then I just slide it back in. And I actually leave those on year round. And it allows for some ventilation within the hive as well, which a little bit of airflow helps keep the hive healthy as well. So when I'm done, I usually like to just quickly record what I saw, especially if I'm going through multiple hives. It just helps me remember and helps me keep track of when I saw different things and when I knew problems popped up. So I'll keep a quick field journal, and then I have a different binder of back at my office. But this was hive number 1, and today we saw brood, capped brood, and we saw larvae. We saw capped honey. Screen bottom boards, good. And I made note earlier in the video that I wanted to add the honey super. So I'll put that here as well. And overall, hive looked great. Sometimes when I'm working in a hive, I like to use my cell phone as well. So I just pull it out, and even with my gloves, I can swipe to the left and it opens up the camera feature. So I will open up this inner cover and take pictures of whatever I would like to visually record. This is just an alternative way to keep track of what's happening in here, or things that I maybe don't know how to describe, but I can visually send to someone else or a mentor to look at. And then I just put it back in my pocket. If you do get propolis or something sticky on your phone, you can utilize an alcohol swab or something else to gently clean it off.